KNBR, the sports leader.
No word from John, anything?
Week 17 is here. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund along shortly, bright and early for you. And Happy New Year if you're hanging out with us. How about this, Dennis? We spend the holidays with the 49er faithful now. Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, whatever it may be, dude. And on New Year's Eve, Niners and the Commanders coming your way in about 3 hours. And we'll have it all for you right here on the sports leader, Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund along shortly. What's up, Dennis? How are you, man?
Doing well. It's early, and I hope, we spent Christmas with the 49ers and turned out so good. So I'm hoping New Year's Eve is a better turnout as you go out and play the Washington Commanders. But, it's early in the morning. We're getting fired up. This is a big game. I mean, it doesn't sound it doesn't sound like it's a big game because it's the Commanders, but it is a big game for the 49ers because you got to bounce back after next week.
Well, after last week's performance, yeah. And we've seen what happened, early in the year. Couple of times they fall short. Week 6, week 7, week 8, they get the bye week, of course. You lose to Cleveland at Cleveland, lose at Minnesota, lose to the Bengals at home. And then you get the brakes beat off you by the Baltimore Ravens. Couple of things, though, that we should pull back and talk about is, and we talked after the game on Christmas, that this was a perfect storm. Everything that could have gone wrong, it felt like did go wrong. Turnovers, over 100 yards in penalties, 5 first downs given via penalty by the Niners. They couldn't get off the field on third down. They couldn't get any rhythm going, it seemed like, or consistency. All that said, and Brock throwing 4 interceptions, the Niners throwing 5 and turning it over 5 times in total. They were down 4 at halftime, and they were on pace at one point and finished, I believe they outgained the Ravens, and they were on pace at one point for over 500 yards of total offense and got close to that. Great defenses, regardless of how many turnovers you're forcing or how many points you're giving up, generally aren't getting even if that's like a bend don't break situation, you're generally not giving up close to 500 yards of offense. So while the Ravens do, I think, deserve a tip of the cap, and I think that this told us how good they are, that they're a legitimate contender in the AFC, and maybe this was kind of their coming out game, their hey, we've arrived type of game to beat the Niners the way they did. I'd rather lose a game like that now than lose a game like that in 5 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, that's a game, Dennis, I feel like that's an iron sharpens iron type of game, and you can make sure that's the case if you answer the bell today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of great points. It's just that, when before this game, you're talking about 2 of the best teams in the National Football League, and this was the showcase. I mean, it was a Monday Night Football game, and everything you just said. I mean, the 49ers, everything that could go wrong went wrong, and it just wasn't a good showing. I mean, if you're the best team in the NFC, you come out and you play competitively. I mean, it was a tough game to watch. 49ers got beat up. Offensive line got beat up. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about the injuries later. But you just got beat up. And it was 2 of the best teams. It was touted as, the 2 of the best teams. It was Monday Night Football. It was going to be all this hype. And then you got beat down. So, I mean, good teams play well against good teams. Yeah, iron sharpens iron, but you have to play well against good teams and make it a game to watch, not the penalties, not the tackling, and all that stuff. And it just didn't look right. It didn't look like 49er football that we have seen. And I hate to see when you see a good team play another good team and one team just doesn't show up.
Well, the bigger concern for me is, like we said, early in the year when they lost 3 in a row, it seemed that when they were losing and the problems they had throughout that losing streak were all kind of the same. Remember, 3 straight games of 17 points, 19 last week. I just think that the way last week's game went, yes, there's a lot that's correctable. It seemed to me that, if they turn the ball over one less time, or if they don't turn the ball over on that first drive in the second half, this is an entirely different ballgame. That said, What do you take away? I don't totally. We use that term, sort of trash the tape or flush the tape. I think sort of loosely. When I talked to Kyle earlier this week, that's not the impression I got. He was actually in a fairly good mood, but knew that was a bad performance and knew what you had to do. He said you just can't get too low on one game like that when everything goes wrong at one time. Everything had been going right, it seemed like, for the last month and a half. 6 straight wins by 12 or more points. What do you take away from that game, and how do you put that game behind you? As bad as it was, you know that's not your identity, but as good as you have been, how do you confirm that that is who you've been?
Well, I mean, you go back, and it's all about the preparation. I mean, things are fixable. The penalties are fixable.
Yep.
The tackling is fixable, but there's certain things you got to kind of look at, like your run defense. You got to figure out, why you're not tackling. You got to figure out why teams are running right up the gut. And I think we know. I think Eric Armstead is a guy. I mean, you gotta go back to the basics and football 101s, and you got to fix those. And you got to figure out why it was working, 6 weeks before, and all of a sudden it falls apart. I mean, you're playing a good team in Baltimore, but still, there's things that you have to look at. I mean, you have to look at this film because you got to figure out the mistakes, but you got to put it behind you because now you got 2 games that you need to win. If you want to keep that number 1 seed. So, I mean, you watch the tape, you try to figure out what's going on, but a lot of it's just basic stuff. At this point in the season, I mean, these are things that can be fixable. You know what you have to do. You have to tackle. You can't have penalties. You can't have mistakes. Quarterbacks, you have to understand the defense and how they're trying to defend you, and you got to see the coverages. I mean, it's basic football 101. You just have to execute. And I think that's what you do. You watch this film. You talk about it as a team, as a group, as positions, and then you move on. And you don't make the mistakes this week. I mean, if you come out this week, you make the same mistakes you wasted last week. It's all about preparation.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund will be along in just a bit here as the Niners are getting ready for Week 17 against the Commanders. And there he is. There's a guy, John Lund. Niners and Commanders coming your way here at 10 a.m. We'll hand it over to Greg and Tim at 9 a.m., who will take you up to kickoff and through the game. Let's get to the QB comparison, sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference, and by Dolce Vita Tequila. Tequila, pure and simple. Well, Brock Purdy, of course, for the Niners, he takes a big hit, if not the entire blow, to his MVP candidacy last week. 4 interceptions in the game. 18 of 32. It's at 56%, probably his lowest completion percentage performance of the season. 255 yards, no touchdowns, 4 picks in that bad loss. He got sacked twice. He was able to move the ball fairly effectively at one point. They just had big trouble, and John talked about this on the postgame show last week. They had a lot of trouble trying to move the ball consistently. They did not have the big explosive, the big roof come off the building type of performance or a moment they were looking for. 4,050 passing yards on the year. That's number 2 in the league behind Tua, who plays today. 68.8% completion percentage on the year. 29 touchdowns to 11 picks. 28 total sacks and 2 rushing touchdowns. It is not going to be, it doesn't look like Jacoby Brissett. We did all this prep thinking, oh boy, Brissett's going to be the guy this week. It'll be Brissett. No, looks like they're going to start Sam Howell, who is going to step in today with Brissett hurt now. So Sam Howell going to be the starting quarterback, it looks like, for the Commanders. Dennis, this is a team that we talked about at the end of last week. They sold themselves for parts, it seemed like. They were breaking down. They know their head coach is likely on his way out. They're moving on, seems like, to the next wave of whatever Commander football, if it's even called Commander football, is going to be beyond this season. Dennis, you see Commanders, and you know Chase Young's here. This team is not great. They've got some weapons. At one point, Sam Howell this year was leading the league in passing. It was like 5 or 6 weeks in, but it still happened at one point this season.
Yeah, I mean, he is an NFL quarterback. I mean, there's a reason why he's in this league. And, he's a guy that, if you let him get a rhythm, like any quarterback. I mean, you let him get a rhythm, get some confidence, a couple good plays, big explosive plays down the field, then he believes you can win the football game. He'll get after you. I think that's what he did early in the football season. But, this is a guy you can get after. You can get some hits on him. You can disguise some coverages. And that's what you're going to need to do coming into this football game. I mean, you can't the Commanders, they may be moving on from coach. They've traded off some of their best players. So they're doing their rebuild thing, but they're still an NFL football team, and these guys still get paid. So they're going to show up. I mean, they're going to show up at least for the first quarter. I mean, if you can kind of break their confidence.
Why specifically do you say that?
Well, because the first quarter, if you're in the game the first quarter, a team like this who's gone through this, and you let them stick around, they'll be like, well, shoot, we're here. We might as well win the football game. We're at home. Might as well win the football game. It's New Year. Might as well. But if you go in there and smack them in the mouth, they'll be like, you know what? U-Hauls in the parking lot. Let's get this season over with, and then they can kind of get after them. But if you let them stick around, they'll stick around. Because they are a football. I mean, these are guys. These are national football. These are athletes. You know, these are paid athletes, so they want to look good on the field, put good film out for other people to watch as they try to figure out what they're going to do. But if you let them stick around, let's stick around. But if you smack them in the mouth, take away the confidence, the game, it'd be a nice, easy game for you. But you got to do it early and you got to do it quick.
John Lund is in the building. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. They're trying as an organization to kind of tank these last few games for draft position. But like Dennis said, the guys on the field won't do that. But weird thing that they weren't going to start Howell. They're going to bench him, and then Brissett gets injured during the week, and then they go back to Howell. And if you look back at some of his games, like you said, early in the season, specifically at Seattle, he played really, really well, and they were talking about him as the future of the team. And then I'm sure he lost a ton of confidence. He's the most sacked quarterback in the league. The offensive line has been leaky, to say the least. And then he just started throwing a bunch of interceptions, and he's lost confidence. And now with Josh Harris, the billionaire who owns the Philadelphia 76ers as well, taking over, like you said, he might change the name. He's going to change everything. Ron Rivera's out. You know, they're going to change everything in the offseason, probably including the quarterback, and they're going to probably try to get up and get Caleb Williams, who's a Washington, D.C. guy at a USC. So, there's going to be a ton of changes. But like Dennis said, the guys on the field, it's no difference to them. They are trying to, rest a bunch of guys and fake injuries and all that kind of stuff to move up in positioning. So the 49ers have to bounce back quickly. And I know we'll get more into Brock Purdy, but, as far as the 4 interceptions and the QB comparison here, I don't care if 3 of them weren't his fault and he got bumped and this, that, and the other. The way that we look at this thing is that he threw 4 interceptions, and the common denominator in their losses are his multiple interceptions. If you look at Cleveland and Minnesota in those games, regardless of whose fault it is, he's got to stop throwing interceptions. That first interception that he threw where he didn't see Kyle Hamilton, the safety, was a killer because they have 66 points on their first drive this year. If they get that, I think the game is totally different. So they've got to punch him in the mouth, like Dennis said early. They've got to say, look, golf clubs are in the car, guys. Let's go. And Brock Purdy's got to get his confidence back because he was clearly rattled against Baltimore.
Niners 11-4. Cowboys got a win last night, by the way, to move to 11-5. Lions are now 11-5. Eagles at 11-4. This game is important in terms of where the tiebreak goes. In conference for the 49ers at 9-1 right now. They can lock up that end of that little part of the tiebreak there. They can have the NFC conference tiebreak in hand with a victory today and make next week a little bit easier, take a little bit of pressure off themselves going up against the Rams, who will likely be playing for a playoff spot come Week 18. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. The Commanders started 2-0. Since then, they've gone 2-11. They are not a good football team. 4-11, losers of 6 in a row and 7 of their last 8. Niners had a 6-game winning streak snapped on Christmas with that loss to the Ravens. We'll talk more about that and more about Brock Purdy's potential turnaround today against a much lighter Washington defense. That's up next, only here on the Sports Leader.
I think it starts with the two boys up front, 93 and 94. I feel like, they're very disruptive. They've been disruptive really their whole careers and stuff. So for us, we respect them a lot. And then just their coverages behind it and everything. The boys in the secondary, they're sound in what they do. And, for us, it's, being smart with the ball, being on the right side of the field with our reads, and going through my progressions and being efficient. I feel like they've done a good job of, making some quarterbacks, have to be efficient and take the shots when the opportunity presents itself. But I think overall they're a solid squad and sound in what they do. So for us, we can't get greedy or anything. We have to, for me, I have to go through my reads and stay disciplined more than anything.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here. We are streaming, by the way, twitch.tv/thesportsleader, KNBR.com, the KNBR app, and you can listen to us on the radio right here. KNBR 104.5 and 680. It's the Sports Leader. Week 17 is here. Would not be a holiday if I didn't get to see Dennis Brown's mug right here, sitting right across from me, dude. And John Lund, how about this? We spent all the holidays together now, boys.
I know, right? Thanksgiving, we were here.
Oh, we
Christmas
were. I forgot about Thanksgiving.
Christmas days. Hey, last year we got a Christmas Eve in, I think, last year.
We did.
A few years ago we got that as well with the Rams. So now, as I said this week, guys, and I said this the day after we did the John, you popped on with me doing the day after Christmas. Yeah. That was a fun show, by the way, that morning. A lot of reaction. Niner fans waking up being like, "Damn, dude, that was a tough one to get through." I kept saying that day, I did not anticipate when the schedule came out, whenever does it come out, April, May, whenever we get that schedule and we look at it, we're like, ooh, Baltimore Christmas.
Right.
Ooh, the Bengals are coming, Joe Burrow. You get that Cowboy game. You get the Giants coming to town. There was some fun schedule peaks and valleys, I thought, on that thing. I'll tell you one game that didn't move me at all. Did not anticipate Week 17 at Washington when we were going to be here at 7 a.m. was going to have any juice whatsoever. I thought by this time we're like, man, we maybe trying to peek around, see who we're playing, who's coming to town after this, and now we're like,
I thought the juice this one was going to have was this was going to clinch the NFC. I didn't see last week's game the way it turned out. I mean, not that they couldn't lose it. It's just I thought it was going to be close if they were going to lose it, and not what happened last week with all the turnovers. You said this in the first segment. Here's what's amazing to me is they had 3 interceptions in the first half. It's 16-12. So while you look at the 4 interceptions and with Darnold's 5 and say to yourself, well, that's where they lost. But really why they lost, they were down 16-12 going into the third. The third quarter, they were thoroughly dominated. But there was a drive in that nobody talks about in the third quarter where the Ravens took it from 9. They took the ball at 9:29 and gave it back to the 49ers about 2 minutes. And they just scored a field goal, but it was 30-12 at that point. And you and I were kind of like, hey, they're down 18, but there's still 9 minutes left in the third. And the Ravens are really good, but if they get a drive here, remember, they got the ball to start the half. So that it was 16-12. Niners get the ball. They go 3 and out. Yep. Ravens score a touchdown. Niners get the ball back, turn it over again, short field, one play. The Ravens score again. So all of a sudden it's 30-12. It was 16-12. But like 4 minutes into the third quarter, they're down by 18. And then after another short Niners drive, they allow them to take 7 minutes off the clock in the third quarter to score a field goal to make it 33-12. That was where the game was won and lost. You're down 30-12. The third quarter starts out awful, but there's 9 minutes left. And you go, okay, it's improbable, but weirder things have happened. This is a really good offense. They can maybe Baltimore lets down. I anticipated they would get back in the game, but they took 7 minutes off. Kicked a field goal, it was 33-12. The game was over.
That's the best team the Niners have seen since when? I mean, this is what I've been trying to toy with in my head throughout the week.
Philly in the NFC Championship game.
I mean, maybe. I was going exactly my line of thinking is it's not just
a team this year.
It's not just Philly this year. That's kind of what I was thinking is when has this team or the 49ers as an organization seen a team of that caliber? I was going to go where you were. Philly in the NFC Championship, and before that, maybe Kansas City. Before Jimmy gets hurt.
That's the feel that this game had.
That's
because
where
I remember that game, and it was McCaffrey's first game, so we really didn't even know the offense.
22 snaps he played, right?
It was 44-23 off the top of my head. McCole Hardman scored a bunch of touchdowns on
Juju Smith-Schuster had a couple
reverses and all this.
And don't forget, Bosa had 2 sacks in the first half, and the Niners were in. They were up. They were in it.
But that was the last game. I mean, the Philly game because of injury, but really the last game where they were relatively close to full strength, and we were anticipating it, and it's payback time for the Super Bowl, was at home against Kansas City, and they lost 44-23. And they were just never in the game, and this kind of had that same sense. Now, it was, again, 4 or 5 interceptions, but they just realistically are okay. They score again. Okay, they could still do this, and this, and they never did. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, Kansas City last year.
And then Miami came to town after that, right? Then it was Miami, and then Jimmy gets hurt, Brock steps in, and then they get the bye, and then they're sort of off and run. Well, we didn't know that they were going to be off and running, but they were off and running. I just think that this team has shown, and Kyle has shown, and I think because of and Dennis, you can speak to this, the unfinished business mentality of this team that we kept saying a couple of weeks ago in Arizona, that was just check box number one. It was cool. Yeah, great. It's a T-shirt, hat, and T-shirt game, but that didn't mean really much of anything. It's about locking up the number one seed, and I think there's probably some frustration that hasn't happened yet because of last week's performance. They know they're better than that. They all know they're capable of more than that. So in a game like this today, how do you respond?
First, quick question. Last week's game, did you guys think at any point in the game that the 49ers would win that football game? I mean, did you think, this is going to be it? All of a sudden, something's going to happen. It's going to be a big explosive play. And, I mean, did it feel like the momentum was that the 49ers could win that game?
By halftime, no, not really. But even coming out of halftime, I needed to see something to show me that if they had done something out of the half, I'd have been like, okay, now we're cooking.
And I thought they would.
I thought they would, too.
In 16-12, you threw 3 interceptions. I'm sure Kyle's speech at the half was along the lines of, guys, we can't play worse, and we're down 4.
Yeah.
Now we can go win this game. Let's get our first drive together. All of a sudden, if they had taken a drive like they normally do, it's down 16-12 and made it 19-16. That first drive of the third quarter, they score a touchdown there. It's 19-16. They're winning despite the fact that Brock threw 3 interceptions the first half.
Right.
They win that game, but let's give Baltimore credit. They shut them down.
We can't play worse. We can't play worse. You think he said? They said, "Hold my beer, dude." Wait till
And then the third quarter was a disaster. That was the worst quarter of the year.
After the third quarter, I was thinking, there's no way. I mean, it just wasn't there. I mean, it just didn't feel like a 49er team.
And the drive they gave up, the 7-minute drive is deflated. I mean, that takes all potential wind out of your sail.
Because then they took the clock down, which was your ally at that point. It was, okay, we're down 30-12, but we got 9 minutes left in the third. There's a lot of time.
Yeah.
But to your point, there is, I the whole time I was waiting for that play that they had gotten all year. Brandon Ayuk's wide open, or Debo breaks a tackle, or McCaffrey breaks a 60-yarder. The entire Levi Stadium, and I'm not blaming the fans in this, you got to give them fans a reason to cheer no matter the sport. They never gave them a reason to cheer, so the place went dead silent the entire game. So there was no energy. There was not a play that gave them energy. They never did that. And that to me is surprising. But again, I'm not going to put this on the 49ers because fans always do this. They want to blame somebody. Like, Adam, the next day I was listening to your show in the morning and people were blaming Kyle's play calling. What, he told Brock to throw interceptions? He told the defense to give up those third. Really? Kyle Shanahan's play calling because you don't want to blame the jersey. I can't blame McCaffrey. I can't blame Purdy. I can't blame Warner. I can't blame Bosa. I got their jerseys. I love those guys. It's got to be, for fans, it's got to be the official or the coach.
Well, that's always the fallback, though, right?
And it's come on, man. The Ravens kicked their ass.
I think that's what happened. That's what it was. The Ravens came out, and you had two good defenses, 2 great defenses, 2 great offenses, and one showed up on both sides. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Players showed up, Baltimore players showed up, and they played well. It's that simple, and you got to figure out why you didn't have that edge in the football game. Why were you at home and you have all this great talent, this great defense, pass rush, blah, 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 and you didn't show up? That is the point. How come you did not show up?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's penalties. There's turnovers. I mean, again, Kyle said it to me this week.
Double-digit penalties.
5 turnovers to none is going to lose you the game.
Every time.
99.99999% of the time. We're just looking for the one outlier in case it can't be 100.
But then the question to me is, look, they're playing Washington. That's just what it is. I wish they were playing the Rams, to be honest with you, because I think
they'd be up more.
I wish they'd reverse it because I think their hair would be on fire and they'd beat the Rams by 40. It's not, again, that I'm concerned, but Dennis hit it right on the head to start, which is if they come out slow, Washington, who's like, please put us out of our misery. Here's, please put us out of our misery.
Old Yeller foaming from the mouth, Dennis. We're waiting to go.
If Brock were to throw an early interception, if they were to have a fumble, if they were to kind of come out slow and lethargic, Washington, Sam Howell is, like you mentioned, their record over the last number of weeks. They've become a really bad football team. They traded Montez Sweat. They traded Chase Young here. Powell's lost it. Their offensive line all year has been one of the worst in the league. But they're an NFL team, and if you're going to just let them hang around, they'll gain confidence. They're at home, and as Dennis said, you might as well win it. So, look, we'll defer to you, Dennis, on this. I think they'll come out strong. They know that it's in front of them, regardless of what happened against Baltimore. You win these last 2 games, and I don't know what else they want. Every big game down the stretch has gone in their way. Oh, you need Dallas to beat Detroit on some weird-ass play at the end where the official's a moron? Cool. Dallas beats Detroit, so they dropped their record. You need...
Certainly did.
You need Dallas to beat Philly. Okay. You need Seattle to beat Philly. Okay.
Done. What do you need? Yeah.
Everything has gone in their favor, and all you got to do is beat Washington and the Rams. And despite, a 3-game losing streak and a game where you didn't show up on national TV, you're going to get everything to come through Santa Clara. So doesn't that have to be enough motivation today?
You would think, right? I mean, I think that the motivation right now, you're in the playoffs, and, George Kittle's on the screen behind you. These guys, great game last week. All these, you got so much talent. You just go out and play. Just execute. Do what you do. Do what you've done for the last 6 weeks. And I think that, how do you get that across? It's leadership. You go out and you prepare during the week, but when you get out there, it's all about serious. It's about the football game.
And one other thing is sort of frustrating about last week is you held for a team that won 33-19, you'd expect, oh, man, they probably got up and they just sort of sat on the football and deflated it. Niners still held them to pretty poor rushing performance in general on what they have 26 total carries in the game. Lamar went for 7 for 45, but 9 for 31 at 3.4 for Edwards, and Hill 10 for 26 at 2.6. They did get a rushing touchdown last week, but Niners are a good run D. They did still stop the run after a bad performance 2 weeks ago.
And again, I'm not going to discredit what Baltimore did. But Lamar Jackson, who's going to win the MVP almost by default, the Lamar Jackson
Tua steals it today,
right?
Like he did last week. That's what it would take.
He won it a few years ago, and he was dynamic, and it wasn't even close. He got 100% of the vote. He had a 31-yard run right before half that was very dynamic. Other than that, he played an okay football game. His stats aren't going to jump out at you.
6 for 15 on the ground besides that run.
His numbers on the season are not going to jump out at you, but he's best player, best team. You mentioned this to start the show. Brock, that guy who bought the prop swap ticket, I feel really bad for that guy.
Oh, dude, tough deal.
Look, that MVP talk is over. McCaffrey, maybe, I don't know. Who knows what Lamar does the rest of the way. But it wasn't like they got this otherworldly performance from Lamar Jackson. He was okay and solid, and compared to a guy throwing 4 interceptions, he looked great. But it was a defense. It was their defensive line. It was them in the trenches. It was Kyle Hamilton on the back end. They played great defense, and they forced the 49ers into those turnovers. But Lamar Jackson didn't kill the 49ers. He had one 31-yard run before the half that set up a score, and it was a hell of a run. But other than that, it wasn't like, Jesus, this guy's clearly the MVP. No. He's going to win it by default.
Yeah, I'd say if you watch that game neutrally and tried to pick a clear MVP, it was Christian McCaffrey, who's the only guy I think you'd look at and say, that's it. So if Lamar has a terrible performance today and Tua has a great one, we could end up with a swap again of the top MVP candidate. We'll talk more about that with Matt Maiocco, our NBC Sports Bay Area 49ers insider. He's going to join us from Washington. When we come on back, we'll get his thoughts on this one. Sam Howell, supposed to be the starting quarterback for the Commanders. We'll get into all of that, as well as the health of the 49ers offensive line with Matt Maiocco, who joins us next. Niners still have a damn good shot at winning that number 1 seed after the Cowboys. Thanks, Dallas. 20-19 over the Lions, and thanks to the Zebras last night as well. Only here on the Sports Leader.
Sometimes it's hard to win in this league, and the Ravens are a really good team. And you know what? They beat the Niners. And the only time they could play again this year, obviously, if they play in the Super Bowl, and obviously that's what Niners fans hope, that they're there. And I think they're good enough to be there, but we'll see. But it was just one of those games. Purdy wasn't sharp. I think the O-line had a few issues here and there. The Ravens did a really good job on occasion taking away routes that are part of what the Niners do. Kyle Shanahan would learn from that too. You know, you're always learning in this game. When you think you know, that's when you don't know.
Welcome in. Thanks for joining us, 49ers and the Commandos. And we're trying to, the 49ers trying to bounce back in Washington today. Then they got the Rams, and they still control their destiny as the number one seed in the NFC. And let's get the latest on how the 49ers will bounce back. John Lund, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown is here, Adam Copeland. And let's go to our nation's capital, where 49ers insider Matt Maiocco is. Make sure you're reading all these great stuff. And, of course, listening to the 49ers Talk podcast. By the way, I saw your photos of you being a tourist yesterday. You know, on July 4th, I lived back east for a short period of time in my career, and I did July 4th from the bottom of the monument, that Monument Park right there, and watched the fireworks and everything. So I was reminiscing as I was watching your nice pictures from D.C. yesterday.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, look good.
Did you call them the Commandos?
Yeah, the Commandos.
Did you mean to do that? Yeah, I think they're.
And I'm not going to ask you if you're sans underwear. I'm not going to ask you about Commandos. But, that's a little too much information, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. You got in a lot of steps. Moving right along. Got in a lot of steps yesterday, John.
Did you? Good.
Yeah.
Glad to know.
And I had good support from you and
very
other
nice.
places.
Very nice. Matt Maiocco is rarely speechless. He was speechless just for a moment.
A little bit.
Yep.
A little bit. So nice day. Oh, beautiful day yesterday in the nation's capital.
Nice.
And nice day again today. Very unlike the 2019 game.
Oh, the 9-0?
There was a slip and slide, and
Oh, remember the Washington, he's since gone, but the announcer was getting all mad that Bosa was slip slide and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering about that guy.
He's
no longer
gone.
Around?
Yeah, they cleaned house. Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, because if he were still around, I mean, you know that this would be a grudge match.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh.
The two announcers.
It would be like bulletin board material.
That's right.
It would be like, oh, you don't want to mess with the Commandos?
Commandos.
What you go? Yeah, you don't want to mess with them, especially when you've slipped and slid on their field.
9-zip, I think that was. Yeah, that was a rainy mess.
That was 9-zip.
Was that one of the a season opener game?
That was late in the year. I think
it was late.
Or was it? I thought it was late.
Was it late?
Maybe I'm wrong. I'll go back. I know it was 2019, right? Was it 19?
It was either early in the year, middle of the year, or late in the year.
Yeah. Matthew,
thanks.
Happy New Year to you.
Or somewhere in between. Yeah.
Happy New Year,
guys.
Week 7.
I'm on my game today, folks.
Yeah. Week 7. So, okay, middle.
Week 7. So, so I was right.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. And I guess the biggest question for me is this 49ers offensive line. I mean, we watch these. We watched Trent Williams go down. We watched Aaron Banks go down. We watched Jalen Moore go down last week. What's the status of the offensive line and who's up and who's not today?
Well, Aaron Banks, I would assume, is not going to be up, but I don't know that for certain. It's put it this way: the offensive line is in a lot better shape than I thought it would be when we left the game Monday night, because I didn't think Trent Williams would be up, but he will be up. He's not even on the injury report, so he's a full go. And then, they've done this before where, they've had their guards of Feliciano and Burford, so that's not a big deal for them. I would just say, I would put it this way: they're in a lot better shape than we thought. You'll have. We know for sure 4 guys, and then is it going to be Burford at right guard, or is it going to be Banks at left guard? Because it looks like Feliciano has taken over as a starter. He's played well enough, so I don't see the offensive line as being a big factor in this game, just because they're going to have a group that has played a lot of football together, and I'd say by and large they've played well this season. Monday was a little bit patchwork, especially in the fourth quarter when you had all those different moving parts with Williams out, with Banks out, and then they had to move some people around. Burford played right tackle. They had to switch McKivitz over to left tackle. So I think they're in a lot better shape than they were when that game ended Monday.
Talking to Matt Maiocco, our 49ers insider, NBC Sports Bay Area, who was out in D.C. getting ready for the Niners and the Commanders. We were just talking about the loss last week, John, Matt. We were talking, John and Dennis and I, about the loss last week, and I said, when's the last time the Niners, as an organization, saw a team that was that good when they were as good as they were coming into last week's game? And I think we were all sort of a general consensus that obviously they're healthy, sort of, going into the NFC Championship till Brock goes down. But then if you go further back, right before Brock takes over, we were seeing Kansas City of last year, and we were saying this last week's game kind of had a bit of that Kansas City feel to it.
Yeah, last week's game, or I guess it was
this week's game, Monday, last week. On Monday.
Well, Sunday, right. You know what?
It's a new week.
If you look at it is a new week. Sunday's a new day, new week. I mean, it's tough to really put too much into the game Monday, just because in the NFL, or heck, any level of football, if you lose the turnover battle 5-0, you're not going to win. Like, there's just zero chance. And so, yes, the Ravens absolutely created their own luck. 49ers had some bad luck. Oh, by the way, I do see Aaron Banks out there working with a trainer. So, looks like they haven't made a decision whether he's going to be up or down in this game yet. They're going through some stuff to figure that out. But I digress. But anyway, I just think that it's such an anomaly that rarely, 2-3 times a year, if that, in the entire NFL, a team wins the turnover battle by 5. And so, they could have been playing whoever the worst team in the league is. I guarantee you, if the 49ers lose the turnover battle today against the Commanders, who very well might be the worst team in the NFL, they're going to lose. There's no question about it. And then when you compound that by playing the best team, you're going to get your butts kicked. And I guess the crazy thing is it turned out to be only a 14-point game. But I just don't know how much you can kind of pin on or how many, any conclusions you can draw from that game, just because it was just a crazy thing that the 49ers did to themselves in a lot of ways. And the Ravens made their own good luck. So I don't know if there's any blueprint or anything that can be drawn from from Monday's game, other than the Ravens showed up. They made the plays necessary. They took advantage of any little crack the 49ers gave them, and they crushed the 49ers. And then I almost think it was easier for the 49ers to move on from that game, just because they could go like, it's pretty obvious why they lost. And now, it didn't come down to a last-second drive or a kick or anything. We knew 3 minutes into the second half the 49ers were going to be licking their wounds, and they had to be getting ready to face the Washington Commanders, because they still control their own destiny.
There we go. Very nice rendition there. Matt Maiocco joining us from the nation's capital. That was very talented. You're like a puppet master there. You can talk at the same time.
A little bit of ventriloquism.
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Yeah, and you said it quite well. Along the defensive line, still no Eric Armstead. Hargrave plays last week.
First off, I did not say that quite well, but I appreciate that.
Sebastian Joseph Day, I remember him with, of course, the Rams, so they're bringing in, they're desperate along that defensive line. So where are we health-wise in Armstead long-term? I know that he's got a couple injuries, but that plantar fasciitis is something that, didn't she just do this? The plantar fasciitis is something where those in the know tell me that basically you either have to have that surgically repaired or you have to tear it. Then it starts the process of repairing itself. So I don't know when he's going to be back, but clearly the offensive line we just talked about. But where the 49ers generally beat you is they beat you in the trenches. So they're banged up on the offensive line. They're banged up on the defensive line. That's not great long term.
Yeah, it really it was quite the fortuitous turn of events that they were able to add a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day at this stage in the season. Very rarely can you add somebody this late that can help you. And, basically at this point in the season, all the good players are taken, except for if you're the Chargers and you cut the guy that, the head coach brought in, and, you fire the head coach and you get rid of him. And the 49ers are – I mean, think about this. When the season started, we all thought the defensive line was one of the strengths of the team. And since the season started, basically from the midpoint on, they've added Randy Gregory, not a great player, but certainly a talented player and a rotational player. They've added Chase Young, who will probably end up getting a really nice free agent contract somewhere. And then they bring in Sebastian Joseph Day. So 3 guys in their core 49ers defensive line rotation they've added since the season has started. So it just really worked out well for them that they could bring in a guy at a position in need and someone who is up to speed and has been playing a lot of football.
Will we see Joseph Day today?
I would think so. I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, I would think that he would probably get in for 15, 25 snaps, something like that.
I mean, how complicated is the defensive line, Dennis? I mean, come on. Go get the quarterback.
It's
tackle the running back. I mean, come on, man.
It's small brain surgery.
John, between you and me, I mean, come on.
Maddie, I just beat you to the punch. I know you were going to say it, so I just did it for you.
Guy with ball bad. Hit man with ball.
Fine ball, tackle ball.
Fine man with small number and hit man.
And that's what it's about. I just wonder who's...
Again, John, between you and me, I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, geez, how complicated is this stuff?
Matthew, I'm right here. Matthew, I can hear you, Matthew.
Like, hey. It's Dennis there.
Hell yeah.
Is he? Yeah. Did he hear that?
I forgot.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
So who doesn't get a uniform today on that defensive line though? Is it Gibbons,
I mean, Armstead and probably Beal.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that he would start or not start, but I think he would play. I mean, he's not, the conditioning part is not an issue.
He's played 14 games this season, right?
Yeah, no, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't play. I mean, just again, I mean, they don't need him for 50 snaps. It's just get out there and do the same things that Gibbons has done and Kinlaw has done. But I would think that with Armstead out, Hargrave will start. I think he should play, and then Gibbons, Kinlaw, and Joseph Day would be the guys who kind of rotate in there. Now watch they'll announce that.
They nothing.
Exactly not that.
Exactly.
And then Dennis will be puffing.
See, it's very hard. You can't just go in there and know.
It's not a plug and play.
You can't do that.
Can't do that.
Too complicated. Yeah. Can't do that.
It's a thinking man's position.
Right.
There you go.
It is, and it's the most athletic position on the field.
There's no question.
Well, that's for sure.
Matt, let me ask you this, because we were discussing this earlier too, in terms of all the things that the Niners have needed to play in their favor. This, like in the Kyle Shanahan era, in needing things to happen for you, it seems like they've been the biggest benefit this year of that. They needed the Seattle victory over Philly. They got it. They needed the Dallas victory. They got it. Last night's weird win at the end of that game for the Cowboys over the Lions was, I think, beneficial to 49er fans, despite what the entire bar area at Original Joe said last night. I had to explain what was going on. I was like, I know we hate the Cowboys, but we hate them so much.
We hate the Cowboys.
We hate them so much. We'd rather play Wild Card Weekend. That's how much we hate the Cowboys.
Coach, you were that guy that held court.
Don't you understand?
Take a number, come up and ask me.
No, I was the guy standing there. I was the guy standing there with my arms folded, and my brow furrowed, looking around angrily while people cheered for the Lions scoring that touchdown. I was like, what the hell's going on? I was like, does everybody understand what's going on here?
You were in one corner telling playoff ramifications while Dennis was in the other corner saying, no, defensive tackle is a thinking man's position.
You don't understand.
I was talking
those people left, and they gravitated over toward you because Dennis was annoying them so much.
It took me a half hour before I realized it wasn't I was talking to a giant nutcracker, dude. Like one of those things that got in front of Original Joe's there. He was like, dude, I don't really care about who wins this game. But in terms of things going in the 49ers' favor, they've been the beneficiaries of some pretty good fortune this year. And in terms of health, I mean, the fact we're talking offensive line health now and a little bit on the D-line with Armstead, to me, that's been the biggest conversation about that kind of stuff all year long, with the exception of a couple of Nixon cuts to Trent Williams, Debo, and then Hufanga going down.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, they're probably, and I haven't scoured the injury reports or anything, but I think they're in good shape physically, especially when you think the one injury that on paper you look at and you go, oh man, that's a rough one, is Hufanga, but then you're able to put in the guy that you basically pinpointed to be their first pick in that draft. So they had confidence in that guy. And then, we were talking about the defensive linemen. They went out and they got Eric Harris, who's played a lot of football, and he's on the practice squad, but he's up for this game. He'll be a backup. But Logan Ryan, another guy who's 32 years old, has played a lot of football. So, they've done a good job, John Lynch has, of getting backup guys who aren't developmental guys that, you don't know what you're getting. They've gotten guys like Feliciano, like Matt Pryor, like Logan Ryan. They've gotten these guys that have played a lot of football and they know what they're doing. So, there's not going to be any blown assignments. There's not going to be any, you had him, I thought I had him. None of that stuff. So there's a chance that, on one level, I'm not going to say an upgrade, but I just don't know that there's going to be much of a drop-off going from Jair Brown, who has a lot of potential and who's probably going to play a lot here in the future and be a really good player. I don't know that there's a whole lot of drop-off from a guy who has 4 NFL starts to a guy who's had like 60 NFL starts. So I think they're in pretty good position from that health standpoint that it doesn't hurt them. And you're right. I mean, they've other than a couple guys missing time here and there, guys on the offensive line, defensive line, Trent and Debo, losing them for those 3 games was costly, but they've set themselves up pretty well for the postseason if things kind of remain the same. The key is, as Adam was explaining to everybody at Original Joe's, to the point where they were getting annoyed and leaving.
If you heard it last night, that's why you left, right?
Yes. They really do need that first-round playoff bye, and I guess every team can say that, but it gives them just that week. Not only would they not have to travel for any postseason games, but just that week off would be huge for them to kind of get back in order, and maybe Armstead comes back and guys who have some nicks, guys who are questionable this week, could be back and just rested and ready to go for the postseason. So that's the thing. I mean, they've played a lot of football over the last 4 years. 3 of the 4 years they've had deep playoff runs, and I don't know if that has a cumulative effect on the physicality of these guys, but you kind of get the sense, watching the game Monday night, I kind of got the sense that they looked tired a little bit. The Ravens just looked better than them, so I just think it's going to be a really tough road for them if they don't get that first round playoff bye, if they have to continue playing all the way through. I don't know that they can, not that the NFC is foreboding and it's just like, there's no way they can get out of that, but I think it makes it really difficult if they have to play all the way through and then they have to win 2 games to get to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, you had said that on the 49ers Talk podcast, which you can hear wherever you get your podcast today, following the Niners and the Commanders game. Matt Maiocco and Jennifer Lee Chan. I listen to it every week. It's a lot of fun, man. You guys do a great breakdown of the game, and you made that same point afterwards. You said, look, I won't say they can't do it, of course, but if they don't get that bye, just based on the exhaustion right now, it's their chances of winning a Super Bowl take a tremendous hit if you're talking percentages or odds. So. I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
And it's not like the Lions are unbeatable or the Eagles.
It's the extra game. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is. And the NFC is, I think, I was of the opinion early on that whoever the 5 seed just punch their ticket, they're going to beat the 4 seed. Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't, the Cowboys going to Tampa or even the Eagles going to Tampa, I don't think that's a given. And
Dallas is 3-5 on the road. I don't know that that's a given. Detroit, if they have to take on, say, the Rams in a 3-6.
You want to see Baker Mayfield in the playoff? I mean, if you're not the Niners, you want to see Baker. Like, that guy's.
But I thought early, I agree with you. I thought the NFC South winner would be rolled. I thought that in the 3-6 it would be easy. I don't know that the Lions beat the Rams the way the Rams are playing. Like, this could be jumbled up in the air, this whole thing.
I would love that game. Rams at Lions. That'd be a blast.
I just don't you guys think, I mean, just objectively, the 49ers are so clearly the best team in the NFC, but as they showed last week, they can be beaten.
And there was a lot of injuries. I think what you're saying too about just getting guys back, because the key to the 49ers long runs recently has been at the end of the year, they get hot, they get healthy, and they get rolling. And they were doing that until the last couple of weeks, where all of a sudden now their health is a major question mark. So
yeah, and when we're talking about the injuries and how big it is to get healthy, we're also, kind of the unspoken part of this is another game means another chance for even the healthy guys to get injured.
That's it. And you want to stay away from that one extra game. We're already playing that one extra game next week, Matt. Hey, enjoy the trip out to DC, and have a happy New Year, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, by the way, real quick.
I don't know if you know this, Adam. I'm already here. So,
well, have a safe trip back from DC. I think is what I meant. Have a safe trip home from DC.
Hey, do you just do the videos of the players walking in at home, or do you do it on the road as well?
Well, you know what? I got to admit, last night was kind of my New Year's Eve, so I kind of got a late start this morning. If we're going to be
so this morning is your New Year's.
So
morning.
have you seen what Debo's wearing this morning? By chance?
I heard. No, I haven't.
It's a vest. It's one of those puffy vests, right? It's popular. But it's red.
It's a Purdy jersey.
And it's Purdy. It's like a Purdy jersey. And then, but in the back corner of it says MVP. So he's backing his guy, but it's a custom made Purdy vest.
Here's a little bit of information. You know who made that for him?
You.
Obviously, no, I did not. I did not.
You're multi-talented, You just sang the national anthem. I thought you could do everything. Is that right?
How about that?
So she's quite a fashion designer. Like she'll take like random stuff and just make something really trendy and can I say the word cute? She can make something really cute.
No, you can't.
I wonder what she charged her for that.
Dennis just jumped back in now. He remember what you said about D-line stuff earlier.
He's just been steaming over there.
He's like, wait till I get my shot. I'm going to take one in a minute.
You just
Dennis
laid in the weeds there.
Studying for all the assignments that the defensive tackle.
All right, we'll let you go. Danny's getting mad.
I knew by the seam work it wasn't Matt Maiocco's. It wasn't your embroidery.
It was cool looking.
Yeah,
I thought some stylist, charged him like $20,000 for that. She probably did.
Well, she
probably did.
Why is Danny mad? Is he mad at me or you?
Yeah, we're just running late.
We can never tell. Danny's always mad. Danny's actually never mad ever. All right, Matt. Well, hey, have a safe trip back. Look at that. I got a second try at that.
There we go.
And we'll listen to the 49er Talk podcast with you and Jennifer Lee Chan later today, and we'll talk to you next week, Matt.
I love it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get you the game plan. We'll get you the player to bank on. We got the spotlight. We got our conversation with Greg Papa, and we got the Niners and the Commanders Week 17 coming your way. A 10 a.m. kickoff only here on the Sports Leader.
Nick, the fact that you still have home field advantage in your control, how big of a factor is that in these last 2 games, just knowing that you have everything you want still in front of you?
It's huge. The bye week is such a big deal. They took away 1 bye week. They added a game. But the fact that they did that, the NFL, makes it tougher. It makes it tougher for teams that don't get the bye to keep everybody out there and play the best football they can in the playoff. But it is what it is, and we're still in control. So on to the next.
Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lem with you. It's Week 17, Niners and the Commanders. That was Nick Bosa there, of course, talking about how difficult it is to win, how difficult the NFL's made it to win if you do not get that number 1 seed in the bye. We're going to see, by the way, this year what that means for Patrick Mahomes for the first time in his career. He will not have an NFC or an AFC championship game if he makes it that far at Arrowhead Stadium. He's going to be on the road for the
Never played a road playoff game.
Isn't that interesting?
I mean, crazy.
It's wild.
I mean, it's not that he probably can't.
You know, that's the knock on Mahomes is he just can't win road playoff games.
Exactly.
That's been my knock forever on him.
It's wild.
Until he starts winning playoff games on the road, I won't put him in the. That's how we do it now, dude. We just parse through it until you find something nobody's done.
Oh, you can't do this. Brock can't come back. Mahomes can't win on the road.
Well, let's get into that as we build the game plan. Sponsored by Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us today at goldenstatelumber.com and by River Islands. It was for me. Come home to River Islands and Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle with its lakes, parks, and schools. Start your tour today at riverislands.com. It was for me. The game plan for this one, in terms of what Brock Purdy has to do, this is about him relative to last week. I mean, for all the discrediting that people did about him not being an MVP because of the weapons around him, it's the same logic they use to credit the year that Patrick Mahomes is having in spite of his offense per se. Well, he's maybe not living up to it, but look at what's happening. He's got no weapons around him, they're saying. I'm like, this is the same offense effectively that he had last year. A few more veterans and guys like Juju Smith-Schuster. But in McCaffrey having the weapons around him, this should be the bounce-backable game. You're playing against a bad defense. It's on the road. I know there's a weird body clock situation here. You have something to prove coming off of this loss on a national stage under the bright lights. If there's anybody in my mind that we've seen come in under Kyle Shanahan as a quarterback and make me think to this point in their career that they can bounce back from a bad performance, it's him. We've seen him do it actually a number of times. Not that he's had a ton of bad performances, but we keep talking about there's not that many situations for Brock Purdy to walk into anymore where he's completely in the blind. And this is included in that.
Right, and he's got to get back to basics, right? I mean, you got to get back to, what we didn't see last week against the Ravens is go out, drive the ball down the first series, and score a touchdown. And then after that, you have to put those 35, 40 points on the board. So you just go back to basics. I think Brock Purdy he's watched this film. He's seen what he's seen. He's seen how the Baltimore – he played a good defense. And this is not a good defense this week. So I expect him to come out and do what he does. I mean, he go down the football field and you dish the ball out to your playmakers. You have explosive plays, which was missing last week, even though you're running back at 100 yards. You had a tight end over 100 yards. But you continue to do that. But you just don't throw the picks. I mean, and that's it. I mean, it's basic stuff. You protect the football and you go down and you smack this defense in the mouth, which you should. There's no reason why you shouldn't go out and have a good game against this defense.
Now, look, this team's lost 6 in a row, 8 of 9. They've been absolutely awful. Sam Howell's going to be forced to start. He was benched last week. Jacoby Brissett played actually pretty decent. There's no excuse to not come into this game, regain your confidence very quickly. I think for Brock Purdy, it's very important. But what I do think the game plan is to say this game is on you, Christian McCaffrey, and just do what they do, which is run the football, get back to 49ers basics, don't turn the ball over, use this as a confidence builder. But also, as you pointed out early, Dennis, do it early. And just say, look, because these guys, Washington has no confidence. They're sitting a bunch of guys out today. Sam Howell's been absolutely awful the last number of weeks. They have no confidence whatsoever, and they want to get beat. But if you're going to allow them to stay in the game, then they're going to play well. But I think it's going back to basics as the game plan. Christian McCaffrey, a ton of McCaffrey, getting it to guys, getting back to the physical nature of football, regaining your confidence. Not that this team isn't confident, but, look, they took a ding last week. They went into that game. They thought this is a battle of the Titans, and it really wasn't close. So this is the perfect team. It's a soft landing spot. Stay healthy. get the ball to Christian McCaffrey. Don't have to take a ton of risks against this team. Get home and get ready for the Rams.
Start fast and get out. And make sure you tackle those guys on the outside because they do have some fast, decent receivers here. Make sure you hit those guys. They don't get out into the open field. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund, Niners and the Commanders. It's Week 17. That is coming your way for a 10 a.m. kickoff. We'll have it right here for you on the Sports Leader. We'll throw it over in about an hour at 9 o'clock to Tim Ryan and Greg Papa, who will take you all the way up to kickoff and through the game. And we'll talk to Greg Papa a little bit later in the show today. When we come on back, 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan joined me earlier this week here on KNBR, and we will play it for you next, only here on the Sports Leader.
It was for me.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here for Week 17. Niners and the Washington Commanders. Niners still looking to lock up that number one seed and have a date with their division rival, the LA Rams, coming to town to wrap up the 2023 regular season next week. But first, the Commanders in D.C. Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers, joins myself and Tom Tolbert every week of the football season. This week, I spoke to Kyle and I asked him what he took away from that big loss to a potential Super Bowl opponent in the Baltimore Ravens.
You gotta help
keep perspective for the guys and just the reality of a situation. I mean, it's one game. I know, and what's so hard is the emotions you put into it. Yeah. It was a huge game. They're all huge in terms of it doesn't matter who you play. It's what the record comes down to, how many losses you have. And if you have the least amount of losses, then you're in the 1 seed, and each one down, you're in those numbers. So that's really all that matters. But we knew how big of a game that was because how good of a team that was coming in, how good we are, and, being in front of the whole country playing on Christmas. And it was a really fun game to be a part of. But I could keep it very simple for our team. Those guys were coming out here. I thought they did their Christmas on Friday, then they were all out here and kind of away from it. And I kept talking to our guys like that's kind of an advantage for them. We can't just sit here and think we're at home and we can kind of balance out Christmas, go to the game. We got to make sure we're ready to come out in this game. And I don't want anyone off in that way. And that's the part that we were concerned with. And I liked how we came out. We came out, I thought, ready to go. Our team was ready for that moment. And we didn't play that well. And not in terms of just making plays and things like that. I said it after the game. And then when I watched the film, it was even stronger. I was like, guys, we came out ready to go. I thought we had a chance because I thought they were a little off at first. I thought we had a chance to be up fast on them and possibly get up to 21-0, 17-0. And we missed those opportunities with turnovers. And no matter what happens, when you have 5 turnovers in a game and the other team has 0, and you have over 100 yards in penalties, and you give up 5 first downs with 5 penalties, I don't care who you're playing. I will bet you a lot of money on that stat sheet that when it goes to who won, that team will lose. And then you add in the team that we were playing, you add in that quarterback, and they're a big part of that. But that's what it was. And we got to make sure that doesn't happen this week, regardless of who we're playing, because the same thing will happen if you turn the ball over like that and you make penalties, and that's what we're getting back to. We got to get a win this week, and to do that, you got to play clean, good football.
Yeah, I think this said a lot about Baltimore, too. I kind of said, that team, I hadn't seen them play all that much. I'd seen a little bit. I just thought, we know they're good, and they showed up. I thought they came to play, and it was a good performance. Your point about the turnovers, I think, is one that everybody has talked about this week, that you can't lose the turnover battle like that. If it was just 3-0 and you lose the turnover battle like that, I think oftentimes you think it's not going to go that way. But at the end of the first half, you guys were down 4 points, and that first drive out of the second half of the first turnover, after they came back and score, I felt that was kind of the turning point, because then they go up 2 scores there, and you're trying to play catch-up. The offensive line situation, I thought, was a factor, too. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that went into this one. Health of the team right now coming out of this, where's your feeling on the offensive line front right now with Trent Williams?
We're gonna still have to wait on that. Got a couple more days, but yeah, we were banged up coming out of that game. I mean, we lost 3 guys during the game. They just changed the rule a couple of years ago that you get an 8th lineman. If we wouldn't have had that rule, this was just 3 years ago, we would have been having a tight end play.
Philadelphia game, right?
Yeah, we'd have had that same thing for our last 3 series. So we had a lot of guys go down. Was really worried about it the day after, but knowing now we do have a chance to get some of those guys back. So really hoping to get Trent back, hoping to get Banks back. Jalen Moore, we haven't ruled him out yet, but I think that's going to be an outside chance. But if we can get those guys back, it'll help a lot. And if not, got to get some practice squad guys ready to go and make sure we got enough guys to line up.
Talking to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, getting ready for Washington on Sunday, a New Year's Eve game. Boy, you get a Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a New Year's Eve game, which is a hell of a lineup for a holiday schedule. In terms of how you react, or Brock reacts to this one, again, we've talked about there's been some down games this year, and he's had performances already. And again, I feel like we've talked to you about this year. There's not much that he's going to see now that he hasn't seen at this point in his career. And at this early of a stage in his career, it's kind of impressive that he's had this many events or opportunities to see this kind of ups and downs and peaks and valleys of the league. After a game like this, you say you don't want to make too big of a deal or too small of anything. Do you react differently, or does he react differently in any way to this when you review this?
No, not at all. I mean, I think if we would have turned on the tape and he was just completely just throwing it to the other team left and right and just making a bunch of stuff that was totally uncharacteristic, I would have had to lead a lot, what the heck's going on? But when you looked into it, I mean, the numbers say that with 4 turnovers, but, it's that first pick was just a real disappointing one. I think he was feeling it going down the first drive. I think we all were. We had a number of explosives. It felt like we were going right down the field, and there wasn't a great look, but he saw a little bit of space, and he tried to fire it in there, and it was a bad decision. And when that was the first pick, and then the 3 after that were all tips, stuff that you're always responsible for the ball as a quarterback. But those things do happen. When I sit there and look at them, there's not a ton of coaching points on it. Yeah, you can avoid this, you have to do this, but it's not like you're sitting there saying, oh, you can't, this is a really bad play. That's like, oh man, this is a tough position you're in. That guy made a hell of a play and it bounced the wrong way. When you get it tipped and the guy on the other side catches it twice, that's tough. And when you've had 3 in the first half, one that really was on you, and then you come out right in the third quarter and right when you're going down to a check down, making a good decision, you get hit on your elbow as you're throwing and you get your 4th. And now you've had 4 turnovers and the score's 30-12 and there's 2 quarters basically left. That's a weird feeling, and that's when it's really hard to play quarterback. And I think that was the experience he got in that game, is how do you manage to play through that when all these bad things have happened and it feels like you really haven't really gotten started to play. And I think that was the new experience he's gotten. But when you watch the tape, it's not like, hey, oh man, I did this, I can't do that. Like, no, man, let's move on. Let's get everyone healthy. Let's get our game plan in. Let's work this week, and we got everything ahead of us. All right, we got to get this win versus Washington. So hopefully we can go against LA the next week, get another one. Got 3 games here in 8 or 10 days, I think, right now. And we take care of business in these 2 games in 10 days, and then hopefully we can get a week off that our guys would love to earn.
Yeah, I think it's much needed, I would say. I not for me. You know, I mean, you guys, I'm sure it's much needed to get that day off or the week off to prep for that, and then get your body right. We know how fresh you guys came out after the bye week, after the 3-game losing streak, and this is the first loss since then. 6 straight wins of 12 or more points, and then getting back after it this Sunday. We'll have pregame for you right here on KNBR. Not all interceptions created equal. You talked a bit about it after the game on Christmas. And some of these were tipped. You mentioned that and stuff. We were talking about it this week on the post-game show. I was wondering about, like, we've talked about protecting a guy from himself when he's aggressive, and you said you'd almost rather have a guy you have to rein in a little bit sometimes and try to pull it out of him and say you got to come out and be aggressive, because then he's thinking about it. I wonder when a guy like Brock, who does appear to be aggressive, and you see him make great throws in tight windows like this, it seems like sometimes you want so much to not have to punt on third down. You're trying so hard to make something happen that at times things get tipped or things get thrown up into the air. We've seen him find great success in those moments, and then this week didn't work out against a great defense. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's an evaluation of something like that, or is there a event?
No, I totally understand what you're saying. And that's kind of the hard part, because the last thing I want to do is, when you're the quarterback in the NFL, you're responsible for the ball. So when you have 4 turnovers, that's why Brock's not going to speak any differently. You're responsible for the ball. You had 4 interceptions, and that's really, you got like a 2% chance of winning. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's not very good. And so, of course but in this day and age, this can be scrutinized all week, and everything's going to, so I do want to keep it real in how it was. And what you just said, yeah, he did make that mistake on the first drive of the game, on first down. On 1st and 10, he tried to make an aggressive throw. It wasn't the coverage we were hoping for. He saw some light, and he thought he could get it in there. It wasn't what we wanted to do, and he was really aggressive with it. And he's done that a number of times in this year where I think it's not the best decision, and it ends up being a touchdown. And this was one that was a bad decision. You got to pick. The other 3, they weren't like that. They were ones that you look at it, you go through the film with them, and you look at where he's throwing, what he's doing. And in the question, you need to tell the guys, hey, you never do this again. This is wrong. And I want to say it on any of those 3. And so that's just the reality of it. Yeah, we can say all that other stuff, but no, that didn't happen. That happened on the first one, and that was a big one, because I thought we had the momentum going, and I thought we were going to go down there, get up 7-0, or I thought our defense just got them to go 3 and out to start the game. And that put us in a little bit of hole. But our defense recovered, got the safety, and the next time down, we had a run play on, and you got to throw it out there when they have a corner blitz, and the corner made a hell of a play and tipped it to the backside corner blitz. And so, I get that, but that really wasn't the situation this week.
I hear you. When you look at this defense, I mean, the Ravens defense is fantastic, but those silver linings are no moral victories, I guess, but I'm looking at the end game and the numbers, and you guys almost had 500 yards of total offense. I know sometimes the numbers can be deceiving. I mean, like in Arizona a couple of weeks ago, they had 230, but they ran 70-something offensive plays to your 50 and change. Is there anything in that you go, we did do some stuff well? We were able to pick up some big plays. There were some great chunk plays, I thought, early on with George Kittle. Late, you saw some great stuff from Brandon Ayuk, and it was the stuff in between. It felt the lack of rhythm, maybe, or consistency. It was kind of stop and go, it sort of felt like, and of course the penalties were a factor there. Is there anything you can take out of that? You say, you know what, there were some things here that we did well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at halftime, I believe we were averaging 9 yards a play.
Yeah.
We also had 3 turnovers, and so I think we had 5 drives. I think we had 3 turnovers, and I think we had 2 scores. And then the second half, I think we had a 3-and-out. Then we had a turnover. And then I believe we scored. And then I think we had a 3-and-out. Then we scored. And then Sam got in and we got sacked there on the last play, I believe. But, I mean, that's what I took out from the game is kind of how we started this. Baltimore is a really good team. We knew that going into the game. They looked that way on tape exactly. And just like they knew we were a good team. And we came out, and I think both teams were really ready to battle. It showed that early. And when you have that situation, you got to take care of the ball. And you can always overcome turnovers, especially if you get them. But we had 5, and where they really beat us as we didn't create any turnovers. And they were very good at not giving the turnovers where we weren't. And so that to me was the biggest thing. It wasn't just that we turned it over and they didn't. They were good at getting them, and we didn't get any, and they didn't turn it over. So when that's the case, it should be a blowout. It wasn't a blowout, but it could have been. And that's what I liked about our team. We were battling. Our guys were fighting their tail off from beginning to end. But it is very discouraging for a team, for players, for coaches, and fans watching it. You're not going to get in a rhythm when you turn that ball over 5 times when you're trying to play that way.
We asked you about it. Is this twice in 3 weeks now that they've had a confusion with you and the 10-second runoff versus the timeout at the end of a game there?
That one wasn't a confusion. That guy, I just told him no, and he said yes.
Said yes on the mic.
Yeah,
and then we got video you yelling no. I'm like, this happened again.
No, I was irritable at the time over everything, and then he just misunderstood me, and I was making sure he didn't misunderstand me, and we had to live with that. So, and you got to be loud out there because they can't hear you.
I assumed as much. Talking to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan here, Niners and Washington on Sunday. We'll have it for you right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680. Before we get out here, last couple of weeks you talked about it. The Rams game when you mentioned it. Of course, you want to get the win this week, and if you get the win this week, you can't be caught in the NFC in terms of that tiebreak, which is another good sort of nugget to have in your back pocket. The Rams game, of course, Week 18 could be playing for something. Week 17, though, this is a team that without evaluating exactly what they've been this year, Chase Young is here from that organization. They've had a down season. There's some weapons on the outside. But is this a game where it's just you've got to it's a straight execution game? Because if you handle business here, it makes Week 18's situation that much less pressing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm really not thinking about much at all besides if we have to win these 2 games in the next, I'm losing my math, but 9 days, whatever it is. I'm not looking at it as we need that first round bye, and that's what we expect to get. And in order to do that, we need to win these 2 games. I look at it, the Rams game doesn't matter if we don't win this one. So we got to get this one. And when I look at this team, they've been down a lot in these last 2 games, and they made a quarterback change in both of those, and the guy's come in and taken care of the ball, and the other guy didn't take care of the ball, and he turned it over. This guy's come in and hasn't turned it over, and he's just gotten rid of it, and they have a lot of good players on offense. They're skill receivers. Their running back, who hasn't played in the last 3 weeks, who I'm expecting to play this week, those guys are a problem. They can make plays, and they can score. And, yes, they not having Sweat and Chase, that is a very good thing for us. I'm very glad that they don't have them. But their 2 inside players can wreck a game. When you have Jonathan Allen and Payne, those guys, I mean, that's where it started last year when we played them, when they did have Sweat and Chase on the outside. It still started with those 2 inside players. So I know they're out of it, and that's why you hope that a team isn't playing as hard and things like that. But when you watch how they finish these last 2 games, when Brissett's come in, and you hear the type of guy Brissett is and how this team can rally, the type of coach Ron is, and those guys aren't going to quit on him. And I know they're going to come here ready to play. We had an emotional loss last week. We got to make sure that we're ready to go, and we got to get down to Washington and take care of business.
Good deal, Kyle. Kyle Shanahan, the voice you hear on the UMA Guest Line. Niners in Washington on Sunday. Always appreciate the time, man. Have a good week, and we will talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you. Same to you.
As 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, he joins myself and Tom Tolbert each and every week of the football season, which, by the way, wraps up the regular season next week. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. A 10 a.m. kickoff coming your way right here between the Niners and the Commanders on New Year's Eve. Time now for a player to bank on, sponsored by Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER and by 5 Star Bank. Learn more at 5starbank.com. John Lund, Who's your player to bank on today?
I think it's easy. I think it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. I know it's low-hanging fruit, but I think they're going to get back to basics. Try to bludgeon and run the football a ton against Washington. Go to basics. This is a bad team. What do you do the best? You run the football and you impose your physicality on the other team. So I think Brock is going to be fine today. He'll be solid. If he throws more than 25 passes, I'll be shocked. I think this is a Christian McCaffrey day.
That's all chalk. I wonder where Dennis is going. D-line, maybe?
Maybe D-line. Chase Young, homecoming.
That's right. Payback, man. It's time.
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, this is a team that drafted you, very high. I mean, their first pick overall, right? Then they release you. This is a chance to come back. I mean, he's been kind of quiet. He's got a couple sacks with the 49ers kind of quietly, but I think this is a game that he really kind of gets after because he's got motivation. This is not a very good Commander offensive line. I think he gets after this offensive line. I think he comes out with 2 or 3 sacks today.
I'm just going to go George Kittle game. I thought last week was going to be the Kittle game. Early in the game, it felt like it. He and Purdy were on the same page, and then the rhythm and everything kind of fell apart. So I'm going George Kittle today, John McCaffrey. You're going with Chase Young. I love the Chase Young pick. Going back to D.C. for the first time. When we come on back, we'll get you an updated playoff picture standings update after what happened last night with the Lions falling 20-19 to the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk more about that, and then we'll get you the Steve Young Show, your 49er player spotlight, and our conversation with Greg Papa from the broadcast booth. Niners and the Commanders, 10 a.m. kick right here on the Sports Leader.
our team does a great job. Our defense, fought their tails off every time we, put them in a bad spot. I don't feel like I've been a part of a 5-turnover game since like 2018. Just surprising, I guess, when I look up and, the one where they had the corner blitz and got tipped for an interception. I'm run blocking. I'm just like, why is Brock Purdy making a tackle right now? Just stuff like that. You just don't see very often, and that's the game of football. Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way, and hey, what are you going to do? You're going to dwell on it, or you're going to move on and go try to kick someone else's ass?
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. That was George Kittle there. Talking about the Niners bouncing back here. Hey, I think we still got a pretty damn good football team, is what he said after Monday's loss at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. And now, on a short week, you're going to see the Washington Commanders. Real quick, just a thought on last night's game. Crazy ending as the Cowboys win 20-19. At some point, Dennis, we were joking earlier in the show off air. At some point, like I'm a gambling man and you're going in on it. You go, 2-point conversion, no 2-point conversion, 2-point conversion, no 2-point, just take the PAT. After they got moved back and then moved up again, I'm like, you know what? 2 shots at it. It didn't happen. Just kick the PAT, go to extras, or go to overtime. I should say go to extras. Go to overtime. They end up with a bizarre miffed call at the end of the game, 2019 final. What do you think of the way that one played out, Dallas and Detroit?
Well, first of all, it was entertaining. It's a great game. Yeah. It was fun to watch. As a defensive player, I would be pissed at my coach because that just tells me that you don't have any confidence in me and my defensive unit. So
to tie the game there and go into OT.
Yeah, go to OT and let's play. And see if we can win this game. Tie the game up, take the points. But to go for it 3 times and all the stuff that kind of happened with it, after the second time, I think you take the hint. Take the points and then move on. But as a defensive player, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, you don't trust us. You don't think we can, keep them out the end zone.
And they played well. Defensively,
they played well. They played really well. Against Dallas. That defense they're humming around. So it was fun to watch. Thank you, Dallas. This could be the breaking point for the Lions. Maybe this is going to bring them down to reality, and because they've had a great season, but I think it's been just kind of on motivation and luck, a lot of luck. So I think maybe it's ran out from a little bit. So
plus, to be honest, Jared Goff is just not at that level. He's a really solid quarterback, but one of the reasons I don't fear the Lions is because I just don't think, they're ready. I think they're a year away, but I don't know that Jared Goff is the guy. I know he's taken them to a Super Bowl, or took the Rams to a Super Bowl, but he did not play well last night. He was greatly outplayed by Dak Prescott. But in terms of where the 49ers are, this really sets up. Adam, you said this earlier. You need Dallas to beat Philly, they do. You need Seattle to beat Philly, they do. You need, look, it's a bad loss last week, but I have a feeling we're going to see the Ravens in Las Vegas on the second Sunday of February. They're a good football team, but this thing sets up really well, and it doesn't change anything in the fact that you're playing a bad Washington team that's lost 6 in a row and 8 of 9. They've got the golf clubs in the car. You win the football game, and then you take on the Rams, who, look, I give the Rams a ton of credit. They're better than we thought. I didn't think they'd be a playoff team. If Matthew Stafford is healthy and you've got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and the type of guys that they have offensively, and they've stepped up defensively despite the fact that they lost a lot of guys in free agency and traded Ramsey, but the Rams aren't on the 49ers level. So, and you get that game at home, and I think it's probably going to be on a Sunday night because the Rams are going to be looking to get in the playoffs, and the 49ers are going to look to the NFC, 2 major markets. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the last game of the year. But look, it's all in front of them. You win these 2 games, you get a week to recover for some injuries. There's no way, to me, that the 49ers shouldn't be in the Super Bowl. Detroit's not there yet. You already took care of Dallas and Philadelphia, and everything's going to go through Santa Clara. This is their year.
When we come on back, we'll get you the line on this game. It is moving towards the 49ers as we are about an hour and a half away from kickoff. Still to come, the Steve Young Show, your 49er player spotlight. Greg Papa is going to join us from the broadcast booth. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund. Niners and the Commanders coming your way. 10 a.m. kick on the Sports Leader. Countdown to kickoff rolls on. Niners and the Commanders, a Week 17 NFC tilt coming your way. 10 a.m. kickoff. We'll hand it over to Greg and Tim in about 25 minutes here, and we'll talk to Greg Papa, the voice of the 49ers, momentarily. A couple of injury updates or designations for you today. Aaron Banks, active today. Good news for the 49ers offensive line. Also, Trent Williams, no injury designation. He's a good-to-go player for today. And this one, a bit of a surprise. Ambry Thomas was listed as questionable. He's also active for today's game. With a Dallas victory last night, the Niners can clinch the number 1 seed today with a win and a loss by Philly to the Arizona Cardinals, or they can clinch no worse than the number 2 seed with simply a victory today. When we come on back, we'll get you the 49er Player Spotlight, the Steve Young Show, Greg Papa's thoughts on today's game, and then we'll throw you over to the broadcast team to take you up till kickoff. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lunn, only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back here with your 49er Player Spotlight. Week 17. Niners and the Commanders have not had to deal with a whole bunch of serious injuries this year. Well, one is going to lead the 49ers to a new starting safety today, and that's going to be Logan Ryan, who spent some time in the NFL already. Played 3 games this season, of course, but spent time in New England, Tennessee, the Giants, and now here in San Francisco, also with Tampa in 2022. He's going to get the start today for Jair Brown, who is inactive, the rookie third-rounder. Here's 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks talking about Logan Ryan and the addition that he's going to bring when they integrate him into the lineup today.
Logan has done a great job. I was excited when we got him. I knew at some point in time that he was going to do a great job in stepping in for us. His leadership there, and I talked to Fred about this coming off the field yesterday, and it's like, you know, did you feel and see Logan? He's like, yeah, man, he talks. And that's the great sign of a safety, you know, his ability to communicate, particularly when you got a new guy in there and he's stepping up and doing those things. So I like his presence. He has skin on the wall, as I call it. He's been around the league for a while, played in a couple of Super Bowls, so he understands the magnitude of where we are at this time of the year.
The guy's won 2 Super Bowls as Logan Ryan. Nice vet to have back there in the secondary, and that's why he is this week's 49er Player Spotlight. aroma. The Steve Young Show. Steve Young, the best half hour in sports radio, joins myself and Tom Tolbert every week of the season on Wednesday evenings in the 5 o'clock hour. This week, Steve discussed the job that John Lynch has done building a Super Bowl contender.
There's nothing like this. If you saw what happened with Chase Young and what John's doing, he's like, it's on. This is the year. Because when we have to pay Brock, you're not going to be able to hold on to 5 explosive players. They're going to get paid. And so things are going to change. They're going to change fast. So I think there's always an exigency to go win the Super Bowl. But this year, I mean, you can feel it from John. He's like just pouring the gas on.
the mindset is you can't let one turn into two. You gotta wipe this one, learn from it, of course. Watch the tape hard, be honest with yourself, but you gotta get back to work, get right back to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't let this affect our confidence as a team. We know who we are. We gotta come back on a short week and go on the road in a big game and find a way to win one game.
Well, in 2023, it wouldn't be a holiday unless we had 49er football. Niners and the Commanders coming your way in about an hour and 12 minutes, and we'll hand it over to the man who will be on the call in just a few minutes after we talk to him. Greg Papa is out in the broadcast booth in D.C. What's up, Greg? How are you, man?
Greg Papa, reporting eligible.
Reporting eligible.
That's right, yeah.
That might not matter.
Make sure you get the attention of the official, though.
Might not matter, Greg.
Thank you, Brad Allen.
Wild, yeah.
So what's that set up for the Niners that I'm sure you've been talking about at Copes is 49ers win this game today. They're going to be assured at least of being a 1 or 2 seed.
Yep.
Philadelphia, will play simultaneously at home against Arizona. Jonathan Gannon, their head coach, ran their defense, so you never know. Can they stop their running game? I don't think so, but maybe Gannon has a way. So 49ers win today on the last day of 2023. They will be celebrating at least a 1 or 2, and then Philadelphia loses. If not, take care of it against the LA Rams. I go into every game extremely confident they're going to do well, and obviously Christmas night did not go well, and here we are. We're actually in Landover, Maryland, and we stayed in College Park. So the road we pulled out of was Baltimore Avenue, so we're kind of still feeling a little purple. But what a change in going from last week's game against Baltimore, who I think now Cleveland's defense is really good, and the Niners' defense, especially on the road, is really good. But Baltimore may have the best defense in the NFL up against what Ron Rivera has here in Washington, which is clearly the worst defense in the NFL. They give up explosives. The Niners major in detonating. They're not playing 3 of their best defensive backs, St. Juice, Kendall Fuller, and Percy Butler. So I ask you guys, will I have more touchdown San Francisco's today? Or their offensive line is also ravaged, and Sam Howell's been sacked 60 times. Or is Tim going to be going, oh, here comes that pass rush? More touchdowns or sacks today for the Niners?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to go touchdowns today.
What do you put, 6, 7? What's the over-under?
I'm going to go 7 touchdowns.
I don't think I've ever talked that way going into an NFL game, but it seems like, does Washington want to win today?
No.
They can't want to.
The team doesn't.
No. Well, I mean, the team probably doesn't.
Players do.
But the players
do.
Exactly. They're pulling everybody out.
Yeah, exactly.
They want draft position as an organization.
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about. I mean, this team is ready to kind of, to get out for the season and get that high draft pick. But the players have to be on the field. And players want to play. And players want to win. My question is, I mean, you're around these guys all week long. I mean, what's the vibe been all week in practice? I know it's a short week, but you come off just getting thumped on national television against, a game that was super hyped up, and you just don't show up. So I know the vibe. I mean, people talk about you gotta be done with it. Don't think about it. But what's the vibe been during the week for this practice?
To bounce back. They want to bounce back. That's not who they are. They actually, I know it sounds ridiculous, but with the exception of the 5 interceptions, they played a good game. They just turned the ball over 5 times. They also were really poor. That one segment there to Sean Gibson with the back-to-back penalties, the couple on defense or on special teams, and not just the 5 turns, Dennis, but 102 penalty yards. They just weren't sharp in the game. Although they had some moments there where they exploded on Baltimore. But I think they're looking to turn the page. Even though, it was a Christmas night massacre to some degree, they got out of it health-wise. Their O-line's fine. Trent Williams will be back. He was back on the practice field for walkthrough on Wednesday with the groin, and he was actually walking around at the end of the game on Christmas night, so he could have got back into the game. He is really amped up to play this game against this franchise. Likewise for Chase Young. And Aaron Banks could play in an emergency, but John Feliciano will start at left guard, and Spencer Burford's back at right guard, and you got Jake, and you got Colton, so they're good to go there. They got some milestones they want to hit, McCaffrey and Kittle and Purdy. If they just have reasonable games today, we'll hit big milestones. And then they're going to have a new player on the D-line, Sebastian Joseph Day. And he's a guy we've admired for years with the LA Rams, went to the Chargers, got a big payday there. He's been mainly a 2-gapper exclusively in his career, where he's holding the block and, playing both sides of the block and both gaps. he gets to just go and play one gap, and just watching him on the practice field, he took to Kasarik and Daryl Tapps, get off the ball, GTFO, right away. His times are amazing. He ran a sub 5:40 coming out, 4.97, Dennis, but his 10-yard split is even quicker. He's 1.68 for a guy that weighs 310 pounds. When they go to that Bravo group, and I for a while I thought Chase Young may start the game today. I don't think he will. I think Cleve Ferrell will. Sometimes you start the guy returning home to throw him a bone, but you'll have Javon Hargrave and Nick, obviously, in Cleveland, and then Javon Kinlaw. But your Bravo, your backups are Randy Gregory and Chase Young on the outside, and Kevin Gibbons is playing better than all of them inside, and then you add Sebastian Joseph Day. I mean, that backup D-line's as good as a lot of teams' starting D-line, and the Commanders, we were talking about their injuries in the secondary. They're not going to have their left tackle, their right tackle, or their center today. And this quarterback has been sacked 60 times this year. So I think this is a day, and I hardly ever think this going into an NFL game because there's great parity and you never know. And this team started 2-0, but they've lost 6 in a row now. I mean, this is a game where hopefully they eat early and they blow this team off the field on both sides of the ball and special teams and are able to rest a lot of guys in the second half.
Happy last year of 2023, my friend.
Yes.
It's good to hear your voice. Missed you this week.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that this is a get-back-to-basics game. I think that anytime the 49ers get beat, they beat themselves. And like you said, this team's got the cars warmed up. They've lost 6 in a row and 8 of 9. And Sam Howell, who looked like the future of this team, is absolutely face-planted. And the only reason it's starting is because Jacoby Brissett has a hamstring issue. But, I mean, do you look at this thing and think, okay, get Christian McCaffrey going, get the offensive and defensive lines back to their dominant selves, and let's get out of here? I think it's a pretty simple game plan.
Well, but you got to execute, and you can't turn the ball over. And this game has meaning, obviously, for Trent Williams, for Chase Young, and also it still matters for Kyle. Last time we were here was Lake Landover, October the 20th of 2019. I mean, it's a great day today. This last day of 2023 in the Beltway at our nation's capital in Northern Virginia and Maryland. It's a beautiful day. But the last time we were here, the Niners did not score a touchdown in that game. They had 3 Robbie Gould field goals, and Nick did the slip and slide after, and they won 9-0. So I think this still has meaning with the way it ended for his dad here. I know Daniel Snyder is no longer involved. They have a new owner, Josh Harris, and they're just looking forward to, or not so much, but to Black Friday on January the 8th, and we'll see what Ron Rivera's fate is. He has one more year to get paid, and if the Cal job opens up, I think that would be a great landing spot for Ron Rivera, the former Cal Bear, to come back home and coach college football for the Bears. But, outside of turnovers, John, and this should be a game where this team rolls. Now, it's pro football. You don't know. But they're just playing so many young guys. Emmanuel Forbes, I think, will start at one corner today. He was a high draft pick. Actually, he was taken ahead of Christian Gonzalez to New England, number 16 overall. He struggled. He's playing with a huge brace on his elbow, so we'll see if he can tackle today. And then they're going to play another former 49er, I think, Tariq Castro Fields, who the Niners tricked in the 6th round a few years ago, that has not played a lot. So their nickelback's a good player, Quan Martin, and their pass rush from the outside, trading Montez Sweat and Chase. The 2 inside guys are dominant, but the outside guys are a lot of young guys with Casey Toohill as well from Stanford. So this is going to be about just taking care of the game plan. They got some special plays they're going to run today and see if they can light this team up.
Well, let's put some fireworks on the field before we put them in the air for New Year's, Greg. Have a great call, enjoy the game, and have a safe trip home, and Happy New Year, bro.
Better have a safe trip home. We're with the Charger. We're on the Charger. We don't have a safe trip home.
That's been you, man. Walking and talking. I just be careful, bro. All right?
I'll be fine. I'll be fine. It's New Year's Eve. I'll when I is this Greg Popper reporting eligible?
Yeah, you're in.
I don't have to walk the line.
I reserve the right to change to change whether or not you're eligible after the play, though, Greg. All right. We will we'll talk to you later, bro.
Who's going to do play-by-play? Holer?
Or Tim.
Oh, jeez.
It's just going to be all sacks is what it's going to be.
Tim could do it. Tim could.
Whoa! That's all
Happy New Year, boys.
Happy New Year, bro. All right, have a good call. All right, we are going to hand it over to Greg and Tim here in just about 30 seconds or so. We'll be back with you after the game. Niners and the Commanders coming your way, 10 a.m. kickoff. Again, the Commanders 4-11, losers of 6 in a row. The Niners had won 6 in a row before they lost on Christmas to the Baltimore Ravens, who, by the way, see Miami later, actually in about an hour or so. They're going to see the Miami Dolphins at home. For Dennis Brown, John Lund, we'll be back after the game. Greg Papa, Tim Ryan going to take you the rest of the way. We'll be back streaming on twitch.tv/thesportsleader and, of course, on the KNBR app and KNBR.com. Thanks to Tim. Thanks to Danny. Niners Commanders next on The Sports Leader.